Thanks for visiting this first video in our Trails Survival series, Finding Water. I'm Jordan, and I'm going to be your guide today. It's your second most precious resource. Thinking is going to be your first. And with water, you're going to have to be real careful with it in your backcountry or wilderness area. You're not going to need food for a while, and shelter is a secondary concern unless you're in some extreme conditions. 24 hours without water makes you significantly less capable, mentally and physically. Your body's shutting down different processes that do things like circulate blood, processing food, the ability to think clearly, or even regulate body temperature in order to get you to focus on survival. 3 days without water, it's lights out. You're done. The easiest way to find water is by looking for natural bodies of water. You should have a good idea where these water sources are prior to your trip from blue lining, which is where you line water sources like lakes, springs, rivers, and streams with a blue pen on an overlay of your adventure area. Clear, flowing water is your best option. Bacteria has much less of a chance to fester. Small streams are usually a best bet, since larger streams can carry pollution from upstream. Lakes and ponds are usually pretty stagnant, giving bacteria a better chance to grow. No matter where you're getting water from, always filter it. There are a host of common bacteria in the wilderness like Cryptosporidium, Giardia, and Shigella that will mess you up for a few days or even kill you. Not sure how to find these sources of water? Practice a military technique, SEALs. Stop, look, listen, and smell. You'll be surprised about how far away you can hear running water. If you take a look down, you might find some animal tracks, and animal tracks do lead to water, even columns of ants. Insects are fantastic indicators of nearby water. They risk dehydrating if they go too far. Flies, for example, are always found within about 100 meters of a water source. Seed and grain-eating birds tend to stay near water or fly to these bodies. When flying towards water, they're going to fly straight and low. They're trying to get there. When leaving, they're going to fly from tree to tree since water weighs them down and makes it harder to fly. Some of these birds include blue jays, cardinals, finches, and pigeons. Traditional water birds like ducks, geese, and herons can fly long distances between these water sources and are less reliable indicators. You're also going to want to check out the terrain. Due to a natural phenomenon known as gravity, water tends to run downhill into low grounds. So if you're up high, go low where the water is going to drain, collect, and pool. If you're already at a low point where the water should be, like a dry creek bed, try digging down a few inches. You may find water. At a minimum, look for green leafy areas as opposed to drier areas of brown plants, especially in dry regions. If no obvious water source is found, it's still a good location to try digging into the ground to see if water is going to pool up. You're also going to want to avoid water that has no green plants growing around it, or multiple bones of dead animals, or even chalky rings. These are probably signs of chemical contamination. Boiling, bushcraft filtering, and iodine water treatment are not going to remove those harmful chemicals in the water. It has to be distilled. So, a quick tip. While dromedary systems are a great addition to your kit, you should always carry a good hard canteen. These bottles can be dipped into a water source and filled up, and with a rudimentary cover on the bottle mouth, they can be used as a filter, very basic one. Metal containers are ideal. Plastic is easier to break and melt. With a 100% stainless steel canteen, you can boil it to clean and sterilize water, maybe even drink straight from it. So water that is undrinkable is useless. Dirty water with diseases and pathogens can make you very sick and even kill you. It's critical that you know how to use any water and make it suitable for drinking by filtering, sterilizing, and distilling contaminated water. The first step after you've found it is to filter it to remove items like animal waste and other particulates that harbor viruses and bacteria. To construct a field expedient filter, you're going to need a few items, namely a tube that is tight enough for water to go through. A modified dry bag can be used for this purpose, but you could even use your pant leg with a waterproof lining like a plastic trash bag. Use your most important tool when you're figuring out how to devise this. However it looks, you're going to want to be able to hang it up so you can position a container below it, and to be able to use your hands to pour water in. The layers are going to go from coarse to fine. In this, we've found some easily resourced items like gravel, grass, sand, dirt, and charcoal from a fire. At the bottom, some fabric is going to be set up to keep everything in place above and as the water flows through the filter. The finest layers are the most important and can absorb chemicals that may be present in the water, like charcoal. Always sterilize water you collect to kill any pathogens. Almost any water can be made drinkable by filtering and boiling it, except for salt water, which needs to be distilled to remove that salt. You're going to want to heat the water to boiling for about 20 minutes. It should be safe to drink. Be careful and let the water cool before you try and drink it. One method to sterilize water when you have a container that can't be put directly into the fire is to drop rocks that have been heated on a fire into the container. You can drop these rocks in the container until the water boils. This method is going to be able to be worked with a variety of containers, including hard plastic and even fabric that's capable of holding water. Be careful when heating rocks. Some stones, like those from a river, can break or explode if they have water in them, so you're probably not going to want to grab the rocks from a river. Safety is always a priority. Don't touch hot rocks with your bare hands. Use another set of rocks or some sticks to grab a hold of a heated rock. Methods for sterilizing that don't require a fire include iodine tablets or even household bleach at a rate of 4 drops per quart or 16 drops for a gallon of water. Don't have any of these items? You can simply let the sun kill the bacteria and pathogens with its ultraviolet radiation rays. To do this, you're going to need a relatively thin layer of mostly clear water, no more than 6 inches deep, and let it sit in direct sunlight for a minimum of 6 hours, preferably a full day to be safe. Where there's heavy cloud cover, you're probably going to have to wait about 2 days. Morning dew can be a good way to collect water, especially in regions where the days are hot and the nights are cold, like the desert. The hot temperatures cause the air molecules to spread out, making room for water molecules to get in between. And when the air cools, the water molecules are forced out because the air molecules come closer together. So, water condenses into dew. Construct something with as much surface area as possible so that it will collect a lot of dew and drain into a container. In this example, we're going to put maybe a tarp between 2 trees and put a water bottle below the tarp. A big tarp is going to work really good for this because it has a lot of surface area. If you don't have a water bottle that you can put underneath to collect, you can always use something like tree bark, since bark is often waterproof and capable of containing water without absorbing it. Another technique is using cloves. Cloves can be used to sponge up water droplets and wrung out into the mouth of a bottle or a boiling pot. A great way to collect morning dew is to wrap cloves, hopefully they're clean, around your legs and ankles and walk through dewy grass. The cloves will soon be soaked in readily drinkable water. A really reliable way to produce water is to tie a plastic bag over some branches and let evaporation do its job. This technique works better if the branch is used in direct sunlight with a clear plastic bag to let that sunlight through. This technique is pretty easy, but it's slow. So choose a bushy green branch with lots of healthy leaves for this still. Make sure the bag is angled with a good-sized pocket at the bottom for water that evaporates from the vegetation and condenses on the bag to collect. You may consider placing a small rock in this corner pocket, or even cutting a hole in that corner for the water to drain out into a container. This water is sanitary and doesn't require boiling. Where there's abundance of snow, water is not so much of a concern. It's all around you. You can always eat snow if you want to, but you have to be careful to not let it drop your core body temperature. If you're active, like hiking, this might be okay. Eating snow before going to sleep at night isn't a good idea. Also, keep in mind eating snow takes energy to melt, and in a short amount of time, you're going to need to find food. So you're going to want to melt snow if possible before drinking, such as in a container or by a fire to minimize calorie and heat loss. If you can't melt snow, at least let it melt in your mouth before swallowing, or try to melt it using the outside of your body's heat, such as putting a snow-filled container in a jacket pocket. This is going to help prevent it from dropping your core body temperature, which is the most important factor when surviving in the harsh cold. Once your core body temperature starts to drop, that's when hypothermia becomes a threat. If you feel your core body temperature dropping, get moving. Being active is going to help raise that temperature. As far as drinking urine goes, it's best to avoid it, as urine contains salts and it's probably going to dehydrate you more. And the only possible exception to this is if you produce urine while you're thoroughly hydrated and your urine's very clear with little or no coloration. Essentially the top 3 of this color spectrum. course, if you're so thoroughly hydrated that you're in those top three, there's probably a water source nearby, so it's kind of a catch-22. If you are dehydrated, your urine's going to be loaded with salts, and it will only dehydrate you further if you drink it. If you intend to drink your urine, only do so if it's very clear and maybe just for one cycle. That's still pretty gross. The darker your urine is, the less hydration value it's going to have. Keep in mind, though, that if you can distill your urine, you can get 100% pure drinkable water out. So it turns out that there are many, many ways to find and gather water in the wilderness, especially if you have the knowledge that's going to lead you in the right direction. Along with education, ingenuity, and common sense go a long way in the search for water. We want to thank you for watching the video. If you liked what you saw and learned something, like and subscribe so you can get notified when a new Trails video is published. Also, you can follow us on Twitter at WTRLS1, and if you're in the Indianapolis area, check out our website for local workshops.